G'day guys, today we're going to attempt to put together the new Serpent SRX8 Truggy. I'll take you through the build. Obviously I won't be able to video everything. This is the online manual. Just makes it easier to do it on an iPad. It does come in a USB stick and all that kind of stuff, but easy on the iPad. Got my tools set up, ready to go. I'll document as much as possible, throw some tips in along the way. Hope you enjoy the build. Thanks. So the first step of the build is to build the 3 differentials. As you can see, I've already put the center diff there, all already done and complete. Comes with the 5000 CST and 7000 CST. It's quite strange because the manual actually specifies to look at the default settings, but it doesn't actually have any default settings. So normally you have the lightest in the rear, so I'll go 5000 in the rear and then 7000 in the middle and the front. It also comes with some grease. So the front and rear are exactly the same. These are the parts that come in the bag, and I'm building one of them now. So I'll probably build this one as the rear. I usually also use a kind of a paint pen, and I'll write what diff fluid I throw in there, just so I remember when I take it apart. So just a quick tip in this, usually what I do is just with the gasket there, the seal, I usually put a bit of the silicone oil around that, so once I place it in the planet gear there, it stays still and doesn't move around too much. Other thing that's really important to do that some people do miss out on is just getting some grease and putting into that groove, and that provides a nice seal on the O-ring. So the grease that comes with it, I use this X-Acto knife to kind of just help it squeeze it inside the gaps. Another thing worth noting is that there it is. There's a grub screw there. So before you put that gear in, so the out drive is held by a pin, something like that. The pin needs to actually go through this hole, and then the hole gets plugged up by a grub screw. Just make sure that when you put it in, it's nice and flush with the outside, and making sure that doesn't go protrude too much in there and touch again, get fouled up there. So I've gone ahead and filled this diff with oil. As you can see, it's not too full. I like to just get across the fill up above those crossbars, probably about 1.5 mils or so. Careful not to overfill. It's interesting, the manual actually says you can actually weigh this side of the diff, and it should weigh 44 grams, and that should have the correct volume. Center diff has been assembled and installed. Just a couple of things to note here. For some reason, Serpent decided not to do a quick release diff. So this mount, the diff mount, doesn't actually split in half, which is a shame. Make it a little bit harder to kind of pull apart when you need to. So just a quick tip here, just to align these brake levers to make sure they're one on top of each other and kind of like in the middle of those grooves, and braking should go this way, so towards us here. just finished putting together the rear end now with the diff housing and also the rear shock towers. Some really nice touches here. As you can see, the alloy with the Serpent logo and the nice edging on that, so the silver edging on the anodize. So just to show you, I'll just turn this, flip this over. When I built this, I actually used pretty much all the shims that was supplied. So there's 2 shims behind the pinion gear, and I also used 2 shims on the outdrives itself, on the outdrive bearings itself. Gives it a really nice mesh. There's actually absolutely no play at all in that mesh, and for a truggy, that's the way I like to build my truggies. Really needs to be quite tight with the big wheels and all that kind of stuff. They tend to strip out pretty easy. Yeah, this one has no backlash at all. That's how I like to build it. As you can see, I've got no grease in there at the moment, just to show you kind of the meshing on it. I will put some grease in that once I'm done here. Also, another thing to note is that it's always a good practice to once you build it, run it for 1 or 2 sessions, maybe an hour or so of running, and then just pull the rear apart like this and just check your mesh again, just to see if there's much play or there's damage to the gears. You may want to add or remove some shims. So by the end of bag 3, you should have something that resembles this. So it's almost the full back end now. Diffs are in the diff case, the sway bars are in. I quite like the sway bar design. If you have a look in the mounts there, I'll just try to get some focus on that. There you go. You can see some ball bearings in there, which makes it quite a fluid movement there. As you can see, there's some ball joints on the arms itself, and the arms are really beefy. Should have quite a lot of strength in that and rigidity. Obviously those plates there are removable. Also, I believe there's some carbon plates that can be inserted in there as an optional part. But that's quite a nice design. If I flip this over now, you can see the other side of it. Not too much else on that except for the mud guards. So it's a quite nice touch. The mud guards there comes in polycarbonate, so you can paint them if you wish to. After completing bag 4 and 5, you should get to a stage like this. Pretty much the whole end built. It's just the shocks to go really for the end now. It's coming together quite nicely. After bag 6, should get to this stage where we've got the bulkhead, we've got the shock towers on, the diff housing, and also the pinion gear here, all in. Same thing, I've used all the shims. It seems nice and smooth still. Tiny little bit of friction there, but that should weigh out in the first couple runs and bed in smoothly. In the previous shot that I took off the diff, I actually put in the front diff in the rear, so as you can see the 7 now is in the front. So if you guys have keen eyes you would have picked it up, but it's now been fixed. This is the content of bag 8. What I find a little bit interesting with the assembly stage. As you can see, the drive shafts or the unis there come unassembled for the front end. However, the rear end were completely assembled there. So yeah, just a little bit of an interesting fact. So we've got our hubs on, and also the drive shafts. So you can see the extended kind of drive shafts on the Truggy. They're 136.5 millimeters, as you can see that. Yeah, so something quite nice here. You've got the alloy C hub, and also the wheel hub here, the steering hub, all alloy, and a carbon steering arm there. So really nice. Also got the boots there that you can kind of fill with grease, and should give it a bit more longevity on the bearings and the uni joints. Something quite interesting that we found, I found when I was building this, there was quite a fair bit of binding on this block here. There's a bush inside. It is quite tight. It's kind of like a flange washer, a plastic one. So all I did was put the flange side on a, as you can see here, a flat file as such, and just give it a quick kind of sanding down. Not much at all, but it was enough to just free it up really nicely. Smooth operation there, and everything seems quite free. Yeah, so that's the end of bag 8. Okay, the front end's all being finished now, besides the shocks. I did mention earlier in the video that I use pretty much all the shims for putting the diff in the housing. What I did find is when I put it all together, it was kind of not binding, however it wasn't, it was a little bit clunky. Now it's, as you can see, nice and smooth. So what I actually ended up doing was just removing one on each end, so one in the front and back, the shims for the bearings for the diff, and that seems to be a kind of a perfect meshing. Something I wanted to point out was Serpent's design. Now they've had it in their cars for quite some time now, and this is the steering saver mount, and this will change the geometry of how the throw of the steering arms and all that kind of stuff. As you can see, if we tilt a little bit, it actually is angled a little bit backwards. And that's to make sure that all the steering components is in line with the geometry of the suspension itself. From the as you know, there's a bit of a kick in the chassis itself, so that's just to align it all, keep it all I guess parallel, and making it a bit of a smoother operation there. Thought I'd show you something interesting that Serpent's done. So this is the servo saver. As you can see, it's got some foam ring around the spring. I haven't tightened it down, but it's quite a good design. Obviously it's to stop the dirt getting in there and binding up the servo saver. I've lost many servos from a servo saver binding up and then causing damage to the servo. So great design there. So that's bag tank complete. As you can see, nearly the whole front end is on now. I'll run you through a few things. As you can see, the whole servo saver steering mechanism is sort of quite well designed. Have a look at they've got ball bearings in there, which reduces any slop. There's pretty much zero slop in this steering system now. And the movement is absolutely silky smooth. Really nice touch there. One thing I forgot to mention also is when you're building tie rods, what I like to do, and this is my preference, you should be able to see some notches on there. As you can see, the notches. I like to put all my tie rods with the notches on one side. Now, either be the left side or the right side, but pretty much all of them on this same side, including the rear. this just makes the whole process a lot easier when you're making adjustments. You know, if you're turning backwards, it will tighten it up. Turn it forward, it will loosen it up, and that's for all tie rods on the car. Another thing that I like to do is with these tie rods as well, they can be really hard to kind of tighten up when they're not on the vehicle. So what I normally do is just put them on hand tight and then install them on the car, and then I actually then just use a wrench to tighten them on the car. It makes it a lot easier to hold. In this particular case, we've got so this is the steering end. That's a 52.5, as you can see. I use the veneers to do that, and as you can see here, there's actually a lot of cranking to do, so just holding it by itself can take quite a while to do and quite hard to hold. So my tip is put it on the vehicle and then wrench it down then. Front end's pretty much all together now. Top plate's in, the side pods are in. It's a bit disappointing how Serpent supplied pretty much all plasticky part. Would have been nice to have the top plate in an alloy or even carbon fibre. Would have been a nice touch. Oh well, I guess that's why they sell hop-ups, isn't it? One thing I did notice was the arms had a bit of play. You can hear that moving around. Backwards and forwards play. The front, both sides. However, the rear, for some reason, just one side, this one's tight. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and put one of these shims on, and that should really tighten it up. We're now up to building the radio tray or radio box. I've got my linkage set with the Serpent alloy servo arm. Highly recommend you get an alloy arm, whether it's Serpent or not. They tend to strip if you keep the plastic one. The servos I'm using, this is Brady brushless servo, very nice servo. That's for the steering, and then I have a very fast D940 TW high-tech for the throttle. Radio trays coming along nicely. I like to use these countersunk washers. Just adds a nice little touch to it. Just a bit of a heads up here. So when you're running your wires for the servos, just make sure we run it on the back side. I use a little bit of double-sided tape there to hold it together. Some people run it on the front side, however, the spur gear gets in the way and it can rip those wires apart, so I always like to run it at the back there. Radio tray's now in, looking really nice. Haven't quite screwed down those servo horns yet. I'll wait until everything is in place before I kind of align it and all that kind of stuff. I choose to use these power switches. They're really reliable, they're waterproof. They also have LiPo protection as well, and they're not prone to fail like the normal switch due to vibrations, dust, and etc. I also like to run my battery and switch cables to the outside. Just makes it easier to disconnect the battery when you've stopped using it. I know I've killed quite a few LiPos, having them plugged in and just forgetting about it there, and then the voltage gets too low and then puffs up. Another thing I like doing is these antennas, so just quickly heat up the antenna poles itself, and then you can bend it. I've done it on the height that it will sit underneath the body itself. Just allows you to have a little bit longer radio antenna sticking out without coming out of the body itself. I really don't like the look of the antenna sticking out of the body. I've gone ahead and completed the kit minus the shocks. So you have a look around, just added the fuel tank, air filter, a few other bits and pieces, the wing's quite nice. I think it's nice and beefy, got lots of support. Also has this nice alloy support there, which I thought it was a really nice design. It's good, very good to be able to use as a handle to pick it up. The other good thing is the screws on the wing actually bolt straight down onto that alloy piece. Not much left to go now. Just have to build the shocks. I have to duck out and get some shock pliers, so I've put it all together. It's just a matter of getting shock pliers so I can tighten everything down without damaging the shafts. Just had to take this the top plate of the center diff apart because the carby on my Novarossi Mephisto, when it was actuating, it was actually hitting this part of the plastic guard here. So basically I've just dremeled it out, made it as neat as I could to give it room for it to move around. Now I'm not quite sure why, but Serpent has had this issue for quite a while in its design. A little bit disappointing that they didn't rectify this when they launched the Truggy, but anyway. Okay, so this is with the engine installed. I'm quite sure if you can see it there. There's now enough room for that carby to move out. A little bit hard to see my hands through here, but you can see now that the movement is unrestricted because of that little cutout there. For the shocks, I decided to go with the optional membrane. So they call it a web membrane. It looks like kind of a honeycomb, as opposed to the normal membrane in the shocks. If you have a look at this, it's really soft, and this is quite hard. It actually doesn't really move too much, and the reason for that is that it kind of acts like an emulsion shock, where it doesn't rebound it as much. The local track that I drive on is quite rough and bumpy, so I wanted something that didn't rebound so much. The part number is there if you guys want to try it out yourself. I've gone ahead and finished the build. So as you can see, I've got the shocks together. Motor, so I'm running the Novarossi Mephisto in it at the moment, just to see how it is. It's actually a GT engine, but it's the just wanted to see how it would react in a buggy. I know it's probably not the ideal thing, but I'm hoping that the smooth 5-port would help it on the track a little bit. But yeah, just a bit of testing anyway, experimentation. Shocks in there. Everything's in its place. I might move that power switch into the hole so it's not such a gaping hole there. So Mephisto's coupled with a Red's exhaust and header. Finishes the package quite nicely. I've also cut out the body, if I can find it here somewhere. Here we go. Haven't cut out the haven't trimmed it entirely yet, so the motor isn't going through, so it's not quite sitting properly, but you can kind of see the body itself. Looks quite nice. I've actually got an example of a body that I painted for a friend of mine that I finished just a couple of days ago. That's what it looks like. Again, it's not cut out yet, but as you can see, it should look quite nice once it's all completed and mounted. Well, I hope you like this build series. I will put another video together, maybe of the painting of my own body in the near future. You might have seen in the background that I got the setup station ready to go on it. It's quite disappointing that Serpent doesn't actually have the default setting on their website yet, so not too sure exactly where to set it as default to start off with. I'll probably just dial it in with a kind of like a standard setting for Truggies and see how that goes until they release something. And if they don't, I'll probably just need to, you know, experiment and try different settings to see how it actually goes. So what's my impressions from the build? I really enjoy building it. It is a quality kit. I guess my only gripe is that there's quite a number of actual downgrades from the SRX8 buggy. A few of them to name. So the rear hub here is plastic. The SRX8 gets a nice alloy set, a few other bits and pieces, so you'll have a look underneath. There isn't any adjustment plates for the motor. It's now a fixed setting there. There's also no rear skid pad plating as well, and a few other things. The tie rods are really skinny now, whereas the SRX8 was a lot beefier. And I guess all in all, they really haven't made too much improvements on the SRX8 buggy platform. There's quite a number of things that I mentioned, you know, all through the video that, you know, I thought they should have upgraded or made some advancements on it. But yeah, they haven't, such as the center diff doesn't split, make it a little bit harder or more time consuming to replace that. Diff covers at the front, they're not quick diffs either. Most platforms now have quick diffs, which make it quite easy. But yeah, they've really strengthened these arms up. Quite tough. So, well, I hope you enjoyed the build, and like I said, I'll probably put together another video to paint my own body. Again, it will be another experimentation of different techniques that I haven't tried before. Hopefully you'll tune in and watch it, and if you haven't already seen, there's another video of the unboxing as well. Thank you guys, and thank you for watching. I'll see you next time.